more people are afraid to fail or afraid of failure than they are of regret.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've found for myself personally, and for so many people that have done just massively amazing things with their lives, they're more afraid of the regret than of the failure. Like, I think that thing right there is going to determine how somebody lives their life, really.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what are you more afraid of? Are you more afraid of trying and failing? Or are you more afraid of not trying and then wondering what could have been?
Hey guys, my name is Katie Enterkin, and I'm on a mission to help humans become the best possible versions of themselves and to unveil what I like to call the beautiful beast that already lives inside us all. And welcome to the podcast about everything and a little bit of nothing. I've had the privilege to talk to all kinds of different humans who have been through a plethora, I love big words, a myriad of experiences just being a human and existing. These are real conversations with real people, getting to know each other, sharing stories that make us cry, and occasionally pee our pants with laughter. We talk about all kinds of life stuff: parenthood, business, life goals, fitness, chasing your dreams, and yes, even some animal noises are involved. For more information, keep listening. This is the Unveiling the Beast podcast. What up, beasts? Welcome back to the Unveiling the Beast podcast. I'm super stoked for this episode. Actually, I'm beyond super stoked for this episode. And honestly, it feels so surreal that I was able to sit down face to face and have an amazing conversation in a room with my lapel mic attached to a wooden Mickey Mouse calendar with Coach Sean Smith. So I'm sure all of you have a person or maybe a few people in your life that you follow on social media, and you just love everything that they stand for and everything that they're trying to accomplish in the world. Well, what would happen if you stopped lurking and you actually reached out to this person? Some of you might say nothing, and some of you might say, why didn't I reach out sooner? I've been following Sean's work since close to the beginning as he started out in the Mary Kay world, and I've continued to follow his work and even take some of his courses as he's evolved into this amazing mentor for other coaches. I highly recommend reading his story at coachseansmith.com/about and come hang out with us as we explore the idea of unbecoming. As always, I hope something lands with you today. I hope something you hear tugs on your heartstrings, and or I hope you laugh. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm with world-renowned Coach Sean Smith, and I have a confession to make to you. You're the first person that I've interviewed where I'm actually kind of nervous.
Awesome.
Yeah. Because, you know that the whole lurker thing for 10 years, 8 years, 15 years. How long have you been a coach?
Yeah, about 15.
Yeah. So,
you were lurking that whole time?
Well, I remember you showing up in the Mary Kay world.
Right.
Like when I still lived in Moore Park. So it had to be
more than 8 years. I don't think I knew that you were like listening while you were still here in Moore Park. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. Because I was a education. Well, I'm still an education junkie.
Yeah.
Like I just like to have all the Mary Kay tapes playing in the background, so
right.
Now I'm like totally in love with podcasts. Yeah. And I'm recording a podcast. Yeah. So I am a little nervous talking to you, which makes me doubly awkward. I'm already awkward. So if I snort or, whatever, that's just...
That'll be perfect.
My awkwardness. Right. So, Mr. Sean Smith, can you tell our listener who you are?
Yeah. Who? Jeez. So as you said, I've been doing this for 15 years, this being speaking and coaching and training, and started out in the Mary Kay world. That's not where I wanted to go originally, but I actually wanted to talk to athletes because I was an athlete, and I did a seminar for athletes how to become better through visualization and mindset and all that, and there were a lot of Mary Kay women who showed up to this event, kind of surprisingly for sure. How to Maximize Your Athletic Ability was the name of the event. So of course, you know, it drew in a large Mary Kay crowd. And they asked me if I would talk afterwards to their people, and I had no interest whatsoever because I didn't really know much about Mary Kay or any of that. But I did a few months later and just fell in love with the energy of the people in the crowd, and people that just want more out of life. So I went all in the Mary Kay world. You know, I created a brand, and I was the Pink Caddy coach, and I was doing a lot of live events called Pink Caddy Universities, 2-3 day, like really deep dive live events. It took me everywhere around the continent. It was going up in Canada and all over the map.
That's awesome.
And it was phenomenal. I had so much fun. So over the years, I've just continued that work and started to branch off a little bit. And over the last 7-8 years, I've done a lot more work with people who want to be coaches. Mm-hmm. You know, I've created certification programs and created my own curriculum, and now I do longer live events for people that really want to go deep in the whole world of personal development and clearing out the insides, you know, all the programming of fears and traumas and limiting beliefs, and just all the internal conflicts of why we know what to do but we still can't do it. Yeah. And that's really the case for, I think, just about everybody, right? We know the formula for losing weight. We know the formula for making more money. We know the formula for even relationships. Like, we know how to do pretty much everything. It's never a lack of how-to information that stops any of us. Mm-hmm. It's always why to, or why not to, and the discomfort that comes with changing our eating habits or committing to a habit of exercise or being open and honest with our partners, you know, to attract a relationship or stay in one and improve one. So over the last, I'd say probably 8 to 9 years, I've really started studying the deeper work of limiting beliefs and values conflicts and micro traumas and macro traumas and all the things that stop this human from doing what this human is capable of doing, but just won't. Yeah. It's fascinating. It's crazy to even say it that way. Like, why won't we just do it? And I know it's frustrating for so many of us. We know what to do. Why don't we just do it? But it's because we've got all these internal challenges and conflicts and knots that are tied. And so that's what I've spent a lot of my time and energy and study and focus on over the last, like I said, 8 to 10 years, really, with the deeper work of like really trying to help people undo the internal challenges. Yeah.
That's really the whole concept behind the beautiful beast within, is that the slogan is Unveil the beautiful beast within you, because this person's already inside of us. We just have to get through all that mental BS and get out of our own way so that beast can be unveiled. So
tell me about beast. What's the connotation or meaning for you of just the word beast?
Well, the word beast is like fierce and ferocious, and I added beautiful because that's like the softer side, because we all have both sides inside of us. So the beast is like the one that just like jumps on every opportunity and makes lemonade theme parks out of lemons, you know, instead of just a cup of lemonade. Nice. So
the whole theme park, go big.
You know, like the lemonade hats with the straw. Yeah.
That's perfect. So what just hit me is, I mean, beauty and beast have pretty opposite connotations. Mm-hmm. And you're talking about beauty. You didn't necessarily say this, but beauty in the beast, right? Mm-hmm. Like Beauty in the Beast. So it kind of sounds like Beauty and the Beast. But what you're saying is absolutely true, that we have the answers inside. And this work that I'm talking about is really just about undoing all of the problems, not changing the person. Mm-hmm. Taking off the layers and the covers and all the things that you're talking about as well, like under the veil, what's there. Yeah. And that's really important to understand, because we don't have to fundamentally change as a person. We just have to change all the things that we've put on top of us.
Yeah.
You know, which is all protection. So if we can dive into the ways that we've been protecting ourselves and unleash that beast, that beauty from within, that's really the answer. It's like we just got to go back into who we truly are.
Yeah. And you said once,
scary as hell.
Sorry. You said once, personal development is about unbecoming.
Yeah.
And that's one of the quote cards I'm going to tag you in on Instagram. By the way, listener, this is the guy that I quote a lot on Instagram. So,
well, thank you.
At
for
Coach
that.
Son.
Yeah.
There's
thank
that
you
awkward.
for that. Perfect.
So can you dig into an event that happened to you when you were, I think, 13?
Yeah.
A big, big event that happened to you that kind of changed your whole outlook on life.
Absolutely. 13 years old, I had just come back from the Little League World Series, so I was a baseball player, and it was December, so we had just gone to the World Series in the summer, and we came back, you know, this is 1986, so this is well before airport security and all that stuff. So we came back from Michigan at our World Series, and we had like what seemed like the entire city at our gate, you know, in the airport, and they had all the signs and all that, and they just welcomed us back home like celebrities. So we had virtually become celebrities in the city. You know, it was the first time anybody had ever represented the city at the Little League World Series. I mean, it was a big, big deal.
That's cool.
And I was just high on life. Like, I got goosebumps now just even thinking about it. And I was really, really good at the time. So I was one of the stars of the team. And I was riding my bike. It was a December morning up in Northern California. I was riding my bike, so it was pretty cold and crispy. And I was really excited that day because my favorite football team, which is the Rams, Los Angeles Rams, but I was living up in the San Francisco Bay Area, were getting ready to play the San Francisco 49ers. So most of my friends were 49er fans because that's where I was living, near there. But I was a Los Angeles Rams fan. And I was just excited. I had my Rams jacket on, and I was in 8th grade, but I was riding my bike to high school because I was smart. And so they didn't have a math class for me in 8th grade at the middle school. So I had to ride to the high school to take high school geometry. And I think there were like 3 of us that had to go to the high school. So I was riding my bikes, probably a 2 or 3 mile ride, like I was riding all the time. And I was in the bike lane on the right side, the correct side of about a 45 mile an hour street, you know, like a main street through a pretty decently sized city. And as I was coming up to this intersection, there was a car that was approaching a stop sign on my right. There's like a 4-way stop, and I was riding through the intersection in the bike lane, but this car just must not have seen me. You know, she probably was looking for the traffic and the cars, and she just didn't see me. So as she pulled through the stop sign and was getting ready to make her right turn, she was about to hit me. And as I saw that she was about to hit me, and I could see that she wasn't looking at me and didn't see me, I just kind of panicked, and instead of getting hit by her, I did really the only thing I could do at the time, which was to swerve. But since she was coming on my right side, I had to swerve to the left. And so I ended up swerving like a right-hand turn, or not right hand, but 90-degree right-angle turn to the left, immediately into traffic. I mean, I went from the bike lane to the slow lane, and I didn't even see it because I was focused on her. But as I went into the slow lane, I just had gone right out in front of a car. And so he didn't have any time to even hit his brakes, you know, and I didn't turn around to see that car coming. And so he hit me. The police said he was traveling about 50 miles an hour. Hit me. I go over his car. I mean, I don't consciously remember going over the car because as soon as the impact hit, you know, I just blacked out. But I know I went over the car because when they eventually found the guy, because it was a hit and run. He took off, but they eventually found him a few days
Lord.
later. There was a blue smudge from my Rams jacket on the top of his yellow car, right? So clearly, I went over the top and I hit the car, and so I must have been kind of flailing and flipping in the air, and I landed. And when I came to, I don't know how long I was out, probably only a few seconds. And when I came to consciousness again, I looked up and I was already facing, like, the way the traffic was coming. I looked up and I saw this car, about to hit me. And so I panic, survival mode. I stand up and I try to run out of the lane, and I just collapse because my left leg had almost been severed by the car. Like the break, eventually later when we saw it in the hospital, the break was like a complete break of the bone. Like there was, it wasn't just broken and still attached. I mean, it was completely broken, clean. And so as I tried to get up and run, my left leg is shattered and I fall down, immediately. And as I turn, I'm now looking over my right hand shoulder because I was trying to head out of the bike lane. I turn and I see this car, and it looks like it's just barreling down on me. And I feel like in this moment, like, this is it. I felt like I was going to die. And it's amazing how much goes through our brains in an instant like that. How much can be packed into this tiny space of time. And I just remember in that moment just asking God to not take me. Please, I don't want to die, and I'm not ready. And I don't remember what happened after that. My best guess is that I just crawled out of the street. I mean, the other car didn't hit me. I don't remember them slamming on their brakes, any of that stuff. It was just like I entered this space where everything was going super fast and really slow, at the same time. And so I must have, muscled my way out of the traffic, or the car swerved or something. And next thing I remember is I was on the sidewalk, and there was a crowd that started to gather around. I could tell everybody was panicking, right? Just the way they were all operating and talking. And then this lady started to pray over me, and it was the lady that had run the stop sign in the first place.
Oh, I got chills when you said that.
Right? And I was laying on the ground, and I kind of look up, and I'm just in a fog, and I see now people, this ring of heads looking down at me, and she was leading it, and she was just saying, "Please, God, don't take this child's life." And that hit me so hard. I mean, even though just a few seconds before I was afraid of dying from the car, I guess I kind of felt like I had escaped the danger. And then here I am, now she's saying, "Please don't let him die," which means, crap, I might die again, I thought I had already escaped. And so I was just in this place of trying to understand what was going on. I was completely out of it, as you could imagine, because I had just suffered this massive blow, getting hit by a car, obviously. And I was trying to put everything back together, like what the hell is going on, and who are you, and who are they, and my body is tingling, like I can't feel anything and can feel everything at the same time. And then I looked down, and I kind of lifted my body over to my right side. I'm not sure why. And I looked down, like with curiosity, what's going on? And I see my leg, and it's just bloody. Like this, I could see the sock, and the sock is like soaked in blood. And it was as though I hadn't seen that before, like this leg, and what's this thing, and who am I? And so I was just almost like poking around trying to figure out what's going on. And I guess through instincts lifted my leg up, and it was just hanging, like right in between my knee and my foot. So right in the middle of the shin, it was just hanging and like limp. And so it looked like the only reason that my foot wasn't on the floor, on the ground, was because I had a sock on. Like that's what it seemed like to me.
Oh yeah.
Like it's just the cloth that's keeping this thing, because it seemed like it wasn't attached. And so I put it back down, and what the hell was that? And next thing I remember, I was in the ambulance, and everybody's moving all fast, and they got, 3, 4, 5 people in there, and they're plugging stuff in and telling people to do whatever they're doing, and I'm again just trying to get my bearings. And I remember looking up at one of the men and just basically said, "What happened?" And he said, "You've been in an accident." And I said, "Is my leg broken?" And he goes, "Well, we don't know." Now, of course, he knows, but looking back, I realized that's probably just his training, right? We got a little scared boy, let's just do whatever we can to keep him calm or what have you. And then I said, "Well, whatever, I don't care. Can I still watch the Rams game?" Like, that's really all I cared about, right? Whatever's going on with my body, fine, but I can't miss this Rams game, right? I got the coat on, I'm ready to go.
Yeah.
And he kind of chuckled a little bit, and then we went to the hospital, and I remember being in a gurney on the hospital, and again, like, not really understanding what's going on, and then I see my parents come in, and they were across the way, and they said something, the doctors said something to them, and it just caused my mom to like double over, like somebody kicked her in the gut. And I didn't know what was said until like 20 years later.
Really?
I asked her. Yeah. And then I looked up, and they had cut my pants off, and I looked up, and I opened I removed like whatever blanket I had or covering that I had, because I knew something was going on, and I just wanted to see it, and I saw the wound in my leg. And the best way I can explain it is it looked like a shotgun blast. But the wound looked bigger than my leg, which is weird, right?
Yeah.
Because my leg is only a few inches wide, and this thing looked like it was massive. But that was just the space I was in. Like, everything was just kind of weird. And that freaked me out, and so I covered that back up. And then next thing I knew after that, they had the little oxygen mask on me, and the lady told me to count down from 10, and I started counting down, and then I got really scared because I didn't know why I was doing this. And she said, "It's going to be okay, you're going to go to sleep." And I just started like panicking, like, I don't want to go to sleep, right? Like, what happened to me, and where am I going? And then I think before I got to 6, I was just out. I woke up, who knows how long after that, and they'd done surgery, and that started my rehab process. So what I found out 20 years later is that the doctors told my parents that I had severely broken my leg, as I said, and they said, "We don't know if we can fix it. Like, we're going to do this experimental surgery, and if it doesn't work, we're going to amputate the leg. Like, we just can't. That's the only option." And that's what caused my mom to lose it. Now, my mom had, boy, depending on how long this recording goes, we'll see how far we want to go down the mom trail. My mom had endured 7 miscarriages between my sister, who's 10 years older, and me. And I was going to be the last one, So there's all this emotional stuff happening, with her anyway, and all these children that she had lost. And you can imagine, here it is, right? Like, after all this, and I make it, and now, I'm sure in her mind, and maybe the doctors even said, like, I don't know if this is life-threatening, but just the whole circumstance of your child's been hit by a car, and you need to rush to the hospital. And so my mom was just on, pins and needles with everything. And so that was the beginning of a major shift in my life, right? Because I realized that in that moment, as a 13-year-old, and I felt like I was immortal, as I think a lot of 13-year-olds do, right? And I had just come back from the World Series, so I was an immortal celebrity. Yeah. Nothing can happen to me, and then I should have died. And there's 100 ways that I don't make it in that accident. Like there might be only one way that I do, and that's probably the exact way that it happened, right? Because if I would have pulled out a little bit earlier, so what happened is the car hit my front tire and hit my leg, but didn't hit the back tire because I had just pulled out in front. And so I flipped forward, and the impact caused me to, go forward over the car and then backwards over the car. But had I been further out and he would have hit me square with both tires, I probably wouldn't have flipped over the car. I probably would have gone under the car. And I would have been dragged or whatever. Like, there's no way. You just don't make it, right? Or if I would have hit my head on the windshield instead of my back, if the other car, could have hit me, if that car was closer to the other one, they wouldn't be able to challenge. Like, there's so many variables that could have, been the end.
Yeah.
As a 13-year-old. And so I learned in a very brutal way that we're not promised our next breath. And so I made a promise to myself in the hospital that if we only get one shot, and here I was high on life and it almost got taken away, that I'm going to do everything I can to make sure I don't live with regret.
Yeah.
Because I had this, divine download or something where I imagined myself looking back on my life from my deathbed in the hospital and just being really angry that I didn't do better, that I didn't avoid drugs, that I didn't avoid alcohol, that I didn't avoid joining gangs and like things that a lot of my friends were getting into, and I was kind of running with that crowd. 13 years old, like that's where a lot of us take those turns, and I just had this moment, like it's almost like the Christmas future moment, go to the future and look back at your life and how did you live your life. And it was such a blessing for me because I don't know why else I would have ever had that perspective except that through a near-death experience, especially at that time in my life. And so it was almost as if I was able to imagine being on my deathbed having not lived the life I wanted to live. And I felt how awful that would be. And I felt the pain in that conversation that I had with myself of what if you wouldn't have done this and you wouldn't have done that and you wouldn't have done that. Who could you have become?
Yeah.
Ugh. So that kick in the gut is really what caused me to make a massive change. I stopped hanging around a lot of the people I was hanging around, and a lot of those kids ended up getting into gangs and drugs, and one of them just killed himself in jail a few years back. Like, he was my best friend. He's the guy that I wanted to be like, right?
Yeah.
And so it was this moment of me making a detour. And how we say, I literally and figuratively changed lanes that day, right?
Yeah.
Like in the bike lane, or from the bike lane to the slow lane, and then from a path that I was on to a different path. And so I looked at everything differently. I looked at my parents differently. I looked at my friends differently. I looked at life differently. I looked at goal setting differently. Like, everything took a different meaning in my life. And I wasn't able to get back on the baseball field for about 2 years before I could actually play well again. And I never got back to my superstar status. That was one of the things that was really, really bothered me, is I left the game as a superstar, got hit by this car, and when I returned, I couldn't do what I used to do. And a lot of the kids had passed me up, and that was really tough for me to take, from an identity standpoint. But then I started getting interested in reading books and setting goals and doing all these things that, a lot of my friends weren't into. Yeah. And that is kind of what led into this. 20 years later is when I did that first Mary Kay event and started to, I guess, kind of officially put in motion what I promised to myself as a 13-year-old kid. And, we are now 33 years beyond that moment. December 17th, 1986. So we're a couple months away from that anniversary as we sit here now. And man, every year on that day, I get taken back to that place and just kind of assess my life and who am I. And so it's given me this drive, though. I've really been driven by that fear of regret, because I I experienced what it would be like looking back and regretting the life I lived.
Yeah.
So that's that's what put me on this path.
That's cool though, because most people are driven by the fear of failure, and the only way to learn and perfect is to fail.
100%.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a big statement what you just made, is more people are afraid to fail or afraid of failure than they are of regret.
Mm-hmm.
And what I've found for myself personally, and for so many people that have done just massively amazing things with their lives, they're more afraid of the regret than of the failure. Like, I think that thing right there is going to determine how somebody lives their life, really.
Yeah.
Right? Like, what are you more afraid of? Are you more afraid of trying and failing? Or are you more afraid of not trying and then wondering what could have been?
Yeah.
That's a big shift.
Yeah. I think this is when we need the tissue box.
For me or for you? Yeah.
I'm not telling. No, but one of the things that stuck out was that you said it was really hard for you going back, not as a superstar, but I just kept thinking, but you went back.
Yeah.
Most people would just say, oh, I hurt my leg, I can't do it anymore, and then quit. But you went back. So that says a lot to me anyway.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And those are turbulent times anyway as a 13-year-old, with hormones and all that stuff. And I went back to school, and, it's interesting. I've got a lot of Facebook friends that were, went to the school with me, and they all remember that day, because what happened was our school principal went over the intercom and told the entire school, Sean Smith has been involved in a bicycle accident. He was hit by a car, and we don't know anything else. Like, they didn't tell him he's okay. They didn't tell anything. So a lot of my friends, people that just cared about me, or just 13-year-old kids that are like, what?
Yeah.
Just dealing with, like, did somebody just die? I mean, what happened? So they all remember the panic that the principal put the school in.
Yeah.
And why would he announce it? Like, what's the point of announcing
been involved,
that?
But we don't know anything else.
We don't know anything else, but carry on. Go back to your math class. And so they were traumatized to some degree. And I just bring that up because I remember so many of them came to the hospital, and they had made a big banner and signed it, signed my cast and all that stuff. And it was so tough though to like you said, to get back. So what they did with my leg is they did experimental surgery. So my bones were completely broken, and I know we can't show this on the podcast, but if you could imagine, there was probably about a 3-inch gap in between the bones, and they were completely shattered. So what they did is they took a lot of the bone fragments that were just kind of swimming around there now, and they mashed them up and just kind of made a little sandwich. So they put it in between the bones and then stuck the bones together and just hoped that it would fuse back together. And then that's what they told my mom. If it doesn't, he can't. Like, we just got to take the leg, because if that doesn't work, then it's worse to try to fix that.
Yeah.
Right? Like, if I was a horse, they would have just put a bullet in my head and called it a life, right? So at least they were just gonna take my leg, but the surgery ended up working, and I mean, it took months before I could walk again, and I was going around school on crutches, and people had to carry my books and my backpack and all that stuff. And it was just a really embarrassing time for me, because the last thing I wanted was more attention on me, right?
Yeah.
I mean, here I was even though I was really good in baseball, I was super shy, introverted, limiting belief, I'm not good enough, nobody cares, all that stuff. And so I didn't want more attention on me, and that spotlight was tough, and I just felt so awkward. And even though I don't remember at the time having any kind of like profound conversation with myself, like, am I going to quit baseball or am I going to get back on the field, I can look back and at least some kind of internal decision was made that I can't not play baseball. I mean, that's who I am.
Yeah.
I can't not do it. And so I did get back on the baseball field a couple years later, and ended up playing all through high school, and I actually ended up going to 2 more World Series, which is like unheard of, at 3 different levels.
That's cool.
I ended my baseball career in the final national championship game as a senior in college, in my 3rd World Series. So, it's got, somewhat of a happy ending in terms of me getting back and going to the World Series. I didn't win the World Series. There's a lot of pain in that story too. But it is a moment that I probably take for granted sometimes, in a moment or a decision where, but if I look back and look at what you just said, like I got back up,
mm-hmm.
and I went for something that I love. And no doubt in my mind, that's probably a function of that promise that I made to myself.
Yeah.
Right? Even though I don't know that I was aware of it at the time. A conscious choice at the time of, hey man, I just promised that I would do everything I could to live a life that I want to live. But I'm sure that was in there.
Yeah.
Because it would have been easier just to go, okay, well, I just sit around and play video games all the time, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I appreciate you highlighting that. It is a moment of getting back up and getting back in the game and see what happens.
Yeah. It's interesting when we look back on negative or positive memories, and we look at them differently,
mm-hmm.
as grown-ups or adults or whatever you want to. I'm not quite an adult yet.
Yeah, neither am I. Yeah. Don't accuse me of having grown up yet.
Yeah. But it's like I can look back on my life and be like, oh my gosh, my life just totally sucks. Or I can be like, look how many times you've stood back up after you've been pushed into the mud, in the ground, bloody, covered in cuts.
Yeah.
I don't know.
So true.
So,
especially as parents.
oh my God.
I don't know what your moments have been with your little one. Mine are 14 and 17 now. But it's easier for me now to see, like, what would I... And my son just turned 14, so, he's a little bit older than this time period of my life when I got hit by the car, and it's just so crazy to think, like, that's who I was, that's how old I was, that's how mature I was, that's...
Yeah.
When I was dealing with that, almost having died.
Yeah.
So I think, for me at least, as a parent, it gives me that perception of, like, what would I say to my child if they were, or how would I react to them if they were going through whatever, if they made the decisions that I look back and beat myself up for, like, how would I
mm-hmm.
approach my children had they made those decisions? So I think it at least gives me a way to be a little bit more gentle.
Yeah.
If I kind of look through my parenting lenses.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, if I look through my own lenses, I'm a piece of shit and I didn't do anything right and everything's...
I'm in that space right now.
Yeah.
Like, I'm probably... Or at least
Can we swear on this, by the way? I think I've sworn.
Fuck yeah!
Okay, good. That's what I gathered, knowing who you are. Good.
Yeah.
Sorry, I cut you off. You said that's kind of where you're at now, and I said kind of
no.
piece of shit.
I'm like the most patient person in the whole world, and I was like, yeah, I'll be a great mom, patience, right? And that child has pushed
He's
me.
like, really?
So hard, like, and I'm in that space still where at least once a day I'm like, oh man, I'm a horrible mom, and then I beat myself up for saying that to myself, but I'm like, I don't know. He's fed, he has a roof over his head, he's extremely loved.
Yeah.
So
everything else is
I just gotta stop. And I think part of it is the internet sucks,
Oh yeah.
Like, I'll look up how to potty train your kid, and then you see all these things of how you're doing everything wrong. And I'm like,
totally.
Oh man, I suck.
Nothing
so
like the internet to give you something really wonderful to compare yourself to, right?
Yeah.
And just feel like garbage.
Yeah. And with comments, if you say this, then you'll have all these people attacking you on this side, but if you say this, then all these people will be attacking you, and I'm just like, I'm just not gonna say anything. It's
dangerous out there.
Yeah. So that's why when you're like, for one of our assignments, post something of controversy, I'm like, dang it. Yeah. That was fun though.
Yeah, good.
Yeah. and it wasn't even that controversial.
Right?
I think I posted, complex carbs are good for you. People lost it, especially all the keto
that's gonna
people.
Cause attack. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. So I was like, this is actually eye-opening.
Yeah.
So, how did we get on keto from parenthood and...
Exactly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I need
Put
to drink
two messy
water.
people in a room with a microphone. That's how.
Yeah. I'm kind of ADD, so I'm like, squirrel. One thing I do know about you, and I think I've commented on your YouTube videos, plural, is that you're the king of analogies. So, in one of your videos, you said, ask me to describe this chair. So I'm going to ask you to describe that chair.
I said that in a video?
Something. You asked me to describe an inanimate object. And
okay.
I'm like, ooh, I got to have him do that.
Was that it? Just to describe it, or to like come up with an analogy around it, or to...
Yeah, like you would be like, this chair is your life. And
I think I know what you're talking about.
The wheels are your rollerblades.
I think I know what you're talking about. So I went around town with a friend of mine years and years ago, and he's a videographer, and he just kind of put me up to this challenge of like, okay, make anything meaningful or profound. Mm-hmm. So we were in a Mexican restaurant, and I was eating fajitas, and he's all right, tell me why fajitas are like life-changing or something. And I just riffed and bullshitted and bullshat, whatever.
Bullshit.
And then he took me into not an outhouse, but a bathroom, like out in the park, right? And he goes in there, all right, now talk to me about this toilet. So then there became this thing of, like, and I don't know if it's necessarily a good thing that I can just like bullshit, but that chair, what I see in that chair is really support, and like multi-dimensional support, and there's a softness to it that gives the comfort, but it's really rigid. You can see the bend right in the back, and but you can play inside of it. And so one of the things that I know is so critical for personal development is like, who's our chair? Who is the place that we can just go, my God, I just need to take these shoes off and just fall down, and somebody will catch me, right? Mm-hmm. And if we're afraid of falling without being caught, then we'll never allow ourselves to actually fall. And as a human, what that looks like with a 2-year-old, or with just responsibilities in life, regardless of whether somebody has a kid or not, is it just causes us to keep everything inside. We need to have an outlet. We need to be able to fall back and be caught, like, a trust fall, right? We need to know somebody is going to be there, but it can't be just rigid. It can't be just, people telling us what we need to do, and it can't be grandma saying, it's okay, honey, everything will be all right. Like, we can't have that all the time either, because sometimes we need to be slapped in the face a little bit, like, what the hell are you thinking?
Yeah. And
so this combination of rigidity plus gentleness, like gentle, rigid support, rigid but with a gentle cover on it, I guess, is so powerful. And we spend so much time focused on information. How do I do this and how do I do that? And the reality is, what's more important, in my experience, is support system, and knowing that you're not the only one who's a friggin' lunatic, right? That have these thoughts.
Yes.
That, as a parent, let's get real. How many times do we just go, oh my God, like I just want to punch something or someone or just whatever. Like that's almost built into the process of what our children cause us to have to look at. Right? Like, look at whether we're patient or not. Like you said, like I thought I was somebody, and then this thing that I created looks me in the eyes, and now I know I'm not anybody. I don't know who the hell I am. So that particular chair, because it's got wheels and it's got a way to swing back and forth, and it's got some sounds and some creaks and all of that is really like life's support system. And where would we where would we be if we didn't have some place to take a load off and to just sit down and rest a little bit, but be able to still move around, if we need to, and just be real, just be human. Like you mentioned, unbecoming earlier. The key, if I had to boil it all down, I would say the key to personal development is unbecoming all the things that we've pretended we are, unbecoming the protective mechanisms and layers and habits and all the stuff that we've created to protect the world from really knowing who we are. Like, that's why we do that stuff, because I don't want you to see me. I don't want you to see who I really am, because then you could hurt me, or then you'd laugh at me, or then you'd reject me and abandon me. So we spend so much time making sure that people don't leave us, that people don't not like us, that we try to become unabandonable. We try to become lovable, because the thinking is, if I'm good, you won't leave. If I'm good, you'll like me. If I'm good, you'll accept me into your circle of friends, right? Because that belonging is something that we really truly need as well. So we create all of these. I've started to call it not yous. I've become not me so that people will like me. But what I show the world is the not me version, not the real me, but the not me, because I'm trying to put some kind of presentation out there that will get me approval.
Yeah.
And then that does whatever it does, and at a certain point that becomes exhausting, because living your life as not you is friggin' ridiculously hard. And then even if we get people to like us, they don't really like us, they like the not us.
Exactly.
Right?
Yeah.
So then at some point, whether it's a midlife crisis or getting hit by a car or whatever, the human says, this is not the way I want to live, right? So I want to actually be me. And the challenge then, now that's where the unbecoming starts. The challenge then is, number one, I'm going to do this actually in reverse order. Number two, how do I show people who I really am? Because if I do, they might still leave, right? Because we became not me because we didn't think me was good enough. If me was good enough to not be abandoned and to be approved of and to be accepted, then I wouldn't need the not me. So it's coming from this place of, I'm already screwed up as I am, therefore I need to unscrew myself up so people won't leave me and they'll like me and they'll accept me. And then we have this epiphany and go, actually, maybe this is not what I want to experience in life, and all the things that I've tried, whether it's success or sex or money or achievements or whatever, actually didn't give me a better experience of life, right? The not me, the really successful version of not me, actually didn't improve my quality of life, internally at least, right?
Yeah.
It didn't make me happier, it didn't make me more fulfilled. In fact, for a lot of people, it made it worse. So, okay, that's not working, so let me go back to the me. So number two is, how do I show people me and believe that they still won't leave and abandon me, right? But then number one, so I'm doing this in reverse order, because the first step is, who the hell is me?
Yeah.
And that's the breathtaking question. Because when we stop paper macheing our not me version of the world and we look in and go, who is this person? And we've spent years and decades, for most of us, being the not version of us. And it's terrifying to consider who the real version of us is. So that first encounter of us and us is terrifying. Even not the encounter, because usually it takes a lot of work before you even get the encounter, but the consideration of, oh my God, I'm going to show the world who I am? Fuck that noise, right? Absolutely not. And that's the whole process of unbecoming. It's going back to who we are. So it's simultaneously simple and exciting, because the message is we don't need to change as people. We just need to be ourselves. Right. So that's simple.
Yeah.
And that's exciting and scary as hell, because that's what we've been working our whole life, making sure nobody sees.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And now you're telling me the answer is to put that person on stage, give them a mic and put them in the spotlight, and hey, here I am, right?
Yeah.
Hell no. And that, in a nutshell, is personal development. It's the wrestling with, no, don't take my blanket away. Like, they'll see me. Yeah, that's the point. We need you to see. No, I don't want them to see me. So that's unbecoming, and that's personal. I don't know if it's as much personal development as personal. Well, maybe that is worded correctly. De-evelopment, right? Like it's devolving back to who we really are.
Yeah.
And it's, in my opinion, it's the answer for real, true happiness. And it's just the scariest thing to most humans. There you have it.
There you have it. Ladies and gentlemen, the chair.
That's let's introduce to you the chair. Now I want to do like an acronym for chair, and probably do a video in that chair.
Well, if
like this little lever right here, this is like your inner circle of friends, because it allows you to be fun and swing back and forth. What were you going to say?
I was going to say, if I see a YouTube video pop up with chair
there you go.
The acronym, I'll be like,
you'll know where it was originated. Yeah.
That's so funny. That was awesome. I didn't know it would go that deep either. Well, actually, I probably did, because it's you.
So if
That's a good thing, by the way.
Thank you. Yeah, okay. And I'm virtually unoffendable, so say whatever you want to say. But I kind of thought you were going to ask a slightly different question, about analogies.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the things that I've learned to, develop or master or uncover or whatever, is those kinds of analogies, they come from curiosity. So I've never thought about this till right now. Like when we're trying to explain stuff with our current set of knowledge,
mm-hmm.
we're bringing everything that we've known from the past and then trying to fit whatever's in front of us in this moment, our relationships, the future, whatever we're looking at, in the boxes from the past.
Mm-hmm.
Right? And what that means is that all we can ever do is re-experience the past in just different ways. If we're going to use the past, boundaries and labels and beliefs and
mm-hmm.
fears and all of that, if we're going to use only those folders to put everything into, then it doesn't allow us to create new folders. It doesn't allow us to create new experiences.
Yeah.
We are then doomed to do nothing more than repeat and experience maybe a slightly different version, but only versions of our past. And we need to be willing to get rid of the boundaries of the past in order to have, whatever these new experiences are. But that takes curiosity. So if I can now go into the future or whatever current moment we have without dragging all of my containers and labels and beliefs from the past, then I can actually explore what's in front of me
mm-hmm.
from a place of, what is this? Not, I know what this is.
Yeah.
Right? And when you come from that curiosity place of, what is this? You just start looking around. That's when, in my experience, new metaphors and new analogies can come in. Now, we might say that those analogies are still based on, what we've experienced from the past, but it's just coming from a place of curiosity instead of knowingness. Like, I know what this is because I already experienced that before. And that's how we determine that
mm-hmm.
all men are dangerous, or all women are liars, or all money leads to whatever. And so we've predetermined what life is supposed to be like based on our past experiences. And that doesn't leave any opening for new possibilities. It's just old experiences repeated.
Mm-hmm.
But if you add this element of curiosity and exploring and wonder, that's what Desmond is right now. That's all he is, really.
Yeah.
It's just a ball of curious wonder exploration.
Mm-hmm.
And we all were like that. at some point until we weren't, until we were restricted by whatever our experiences are, or parents, or whatever. So if we can get back to that place of curiosity, then it kind of melts the boundaries that we normally put ourselves in, and it allows this new relationship to a person or a thing or a circumstance to be different than what we've ever known before.
Mm-hmm.
Which then allows us to expand everything positive that we're looking for. Back to this idea of unbecoming, in this place of natural curiosity and wonderment that we all were in when we were 1, 2, 3, 4 years old. From that point forward, what most humans are doing is protecting, because we just got hurt and we don't want to have that happen again. We don't want to touch the hot stove. We don't want to get bit by a dog. We don't want to do all the things that we're learning. And so it becomes kind of this is really sad the way I'm going to say it, but it becomes a path of continual shrinking and protection, right? Because we just don't want to get hurt anymore. So we're afraid to go out and try things. And this idea, again, this process of unbecoming is just to go back to that childlike state of curiosity.
Yeah.
So when I just look at life, not that I don't have my moments where everything is shitty and I'm a big curmudgeon, but I guess I've just learned to be a lot more curious, and what that leads to is exploration, and life is much more fun that way.
Mm-hmm.
And then my brain literally works in analogies, and I probably have a new analogy just about every time I talk, because I'm genuinely trying to figure stuff out at the same time that I'm teaching it, right? Like, what if it's this? And oh my goodness, never thought about that. And it's really cool to, it might be super irritating, like to my wife or to my kids, or, some people will probably get irritated by it, but it's actually really neat to kind of watch the brain go back into this childlike place of just, what is this? What is this wall? And is there anything back there? And oh my goodness, this is super different, without judgments and fear and protection, where everything seems to be dangerous. And that has its own potential negative consequences, right? Because you just kind of reach out and explore everything, and you could get hurt. But it's a better way to live, in my opinion.
Yeah. Rather
than just repeating all the pain.
Yeah.
From the past.
And when you do get hurt, that's when you learn, really. And the toddler thing, like, they jump in before they're ready. There is no perfectionism in a kid,
Doesn't make any sense to them. Yeah. Yeah. Like, I want that thing. Why would I not just go get it?
Yeah. Ladies and gentlemen, the chair.
The chair. There you go. I'll never see those chairs the same way.
Same way, yeah.
Interesting.
He's going to create a whole online course that's relative to the chair.
That would actually be,
And it's going to be a year-long program.
It would be really neat, actually. The chair.
The chair.
Like reclaiming the throne where we all once were.
Yeah.
Yeah, something will come out of it. We'll see. I'm going to design like an experiment or an exercise or something. That'll be fun.
Ooh, make it even better. Put something in the chair.
There you go.
And then describe what's in the chair, too.
Like, you just got to sit down. You don't know what's on the chair. You're blindfolded. You just got to sit down. And, okay, what did you just plop down on?
What exactly is touching your ass in this
moment?
Exactly,
right. And hopefully it's just touching. Speaking of curiosity, I think it is.
It's okay. If he's in the background, it's fine.
They
all know I have a kid.
Right.
All one listener.
It's perfect. Good.
So, I was wondering if you have ever been coaching a client, a human, and you were actually the one that had the breakthrough and not them. Or both of you had a breakthrough?
Yeah, I'm sure that's happened a bunch of times. I know it happens a lot. The intensity of the breakthrough or the realization, could be huge or not so much. I'm trying to think of a specific example, but whenever I'm coaching somebody, I'm usually taking notes, either on the computer or writing stuff down. And the cool thing about coaching is you're able to get into somebody's issues, right? But they're not your issues. So a lot of times you kind of enter the movie sort of their life, and then notice something really profound that you can pull and apply to your life, to my life. But because, like, if you were coaching me around that particular issue, I might not have seen it though, because I'm looking at the lens of my own life with all my own protections and the limiting beliefs and all the things we've been talking about. So I'm looking through those layers, and so I might not have the realizations because to some degree my guard is up, and that is generally what happens when people are looking at their own life, right? Very few people just like, go ahead, put the spotlight on me and go wherever you want to go, and I'll guide you to all my pain and all my traumas. But if you're talking to somebody else, so I'll do a coaching call or somebody talking about a relationship, let's say, and I help them discover, or I might say something about gratitude for their wife or for their husband, and of course it lands on me really hard. Like, man, what am I not bringing into my relationship, right? Or how much gratitude am I not paying attention to? So that's a really cool thing about coaching, that the walls of protection and resistance are down because it's not my issue.
Yeah.
And then I get to sometimes pull, the moral of the story out, and I'll either write it down or do a video on it or call somebody up right away and go, oh my goodness, listen to what I just realized, or immediately go home. And actually this just happened to me a couple of days ago. I was doing a video. I was telling a story about a moment like 10 years ago where I was leaving my house, and I hugged my son, who was about 5, 6 at the time, something like that. And as I went to get up, like, he was sitting in a chair, so I bent over and I hugged him. And as I went to get up to go out, I think I was leaving town for a couple of days, he clasped his hands around my neck and didn't let go. Right. And as I lifted up, I kind of lifted him with me, so obviously I can feel his weight on my back and all of that. And then in that moment I realized, like, this little boy doesn't want me to go, and here I am rushing to get out, right? Because I got to catch a plane or somebody's waiting on me or whatever. And in that moment I was like, fuck all of that. This kid right here wants this hug. And so I just like melted into his arms and almost crushed his little body, and just dove into the hug. And as I was telling the story the other day, this was 2 days ago, I was telling the story last week, actually, like 5 or 6 days ago, and I was crying, telling the story, getting all choked up and remembering the moment. And then I was like, man, that boy is at home right now because he didn't have school that day, and he normally would have been at school. And I was like, I got about an hour between now and my next call, and so I just decided to go home and just give him, like, complete that hug, from 10 years ago.
Love on him.
Yeah, exactly. And what I had forgotten is that he's not 5 or 6 anymore. He's 14. So he didn't quite
stop it, Dad.
Exactly. He didn't.
What are you doing?
He didn't greet me with the warmest of greetings. He's like, "Why are you home?"
Did you forget your lunch?
But the point is,
Yeah.
I had this amazing experience in a coaching session of sorts, and it was big because I realized, how often am I not fully present at home in my relationships, and that came to me as I was telling somebody else. Like, how often are you not present?
Yeah.
So that's an example of how a lot of times we get, as the coach, we get doing, or we get the breakthrough. I guess the curse of that is how many times I go, God, if I would just do what I tell everybody else to do, like, my life would be amazing, right? And that's a really common thing where coaches go, I always have the answers for everybody else, but I can't implement it into my own life. Or, if you just, if you have 10 clients, you have 10 brilliant pieces of wisdom, but you can't necessarily implement everything into your life as well.
Yeah.
So there's a little bit of, potential comparison and beating yourself up for it. But all in all, it's so cool to be in those conversations all day long and get a lot out of them personally.
Yeah. I'm glad you said that too, because I feel that way all the time. Like, I'm telling all these people all these things and I'm not always doing them. So does that make me a hypocrite, or what?
It makes you a human crit.
I love that. Human crit. How do you spell that?
I don't know. I've never said that before. I look, human crit. Like, you're just a human critter, right? That's got to be a new word. Oh, there's the snort. That's okay. You pre-apologize for it in the beginning.
I have no apologies for my snorts. That's who I am.
You're right. You didn't pre-apologize. You just pre-prepared.
I warned you.
Yeah, pre-warning. Yeah.
Yeah.
Human critical.
Human crit.
Human crit. I said human crit. Not a hypocrite. Yeah.
I'm doing. He's learning to talk, by the way.
That's beautiful.
So I have one last question
sure.
for you, and I ask everybody. If you had one piece of advice you could give to the world, what would it be?
We might have just landed on it. Just be a human critic. So there's this conversation around validity and validation that we've been in a lot in our community. And the applications of it, the way it's been showing up, is whatever you're feeling is okay. Like, if you have anger, it's okay that you have anger. Like, that's a natural emotion. If you have fear, that's okay. Because what we tend to do is we tend to judge whatever we feel or whatever we think or wherever we are in life. And so then the real problem is not the existence of the circumstance, but our judgment of the existence of the circumstance.
Yeah.
So it's not that being angry is the problem, it's the judgment of the fact that I'm angry.
Yeah.
And then the judgment of the judgment that becomes the real problem. So it's like we get away from who we are and then we just play this game dancing around the edges that doesn't really go very, very far. So the answer is to, I would say, rest in the idea or settle in the idea that whatever is real is real. If you're angry, you're angry. Like, start from there. And when we don't embrace whatever's real, then we're denying us of us. We're denying ourselves of several things. We're denying ourselves of the experience of the emotion, the anger, the pain, the joy. And you can't go in and just mute certain emotions.
Yeah.
So if we're not allowed to have anger, then the message we're telling ourselves, we're also not allowed to have joy. There's like one emotion switch, and they're either all on or they're all off.
Mm-hmm.
So if we try to prevent ourselves from being angry, we also, and we're successful, we're also muting and dimming our experience of joy too. Because human emotion, like, emotion is what makes us human. One of the things that makes us human.
Yeah.
So if we try to mute our emotions, then it's going to be across the board. And if we don't allow ourselves to be angry, to be sad, to be in a state of grief, or to be scared, or whatever it is that we're trying to stop, then we're denying not just the existence of it, but we're denying our experience of ourselves too. And I think one of the most sacred purposes of any individual person, or I'll say it a different way, one of the most sacred gifts we can give ourselves is to know ourselves. And anything that we do to try to deny us of our feelings, of our valid humanity, is pulling us away from ourselves. So we're telling us we're not okay the way we are. It's not okay that, that there's a little one in the other room making sounds, or it's not okay that there's traffic, or it's not okay that there's fat on my body, or fear in my heart, or not much money in my account, or whatever it is we're trying to hide. And that self-denial is punishment, really.
Yeah.
Right? And what it's doing is it's telling us, the perpetual message is, we're not okay, therefore we need to be fixed. And even if we win that game, that's a loss in my book. Because if we spend the majority of our lives in avoidance of ourselves, what have we done? Like, what have we accomplished?
Yeah.
I don't think that's the point. I don't believe that the point of human life is to spend most of it avoiding yourself until one day you just lose consciousness.
Yeah.
You don't have to worry about it anymore. So settling into the validity of whatever is so critical. And if we don't embrace whatever is, then we can't change it. So we can't change our weight until we embrace what we are. We can't change our bank account until we embrace where we are. We can't change our patterns until we embrace who we are, until we know who we are. And that requires, I think, a different level of understanding of what validation means. Because most of us are trying to get validation from external sources. Right? If I do this, then you'll validate me.
Yeah.
You'll approve of me. But external validation doesn't mean shit without internal validation. Because even if you approve of me, but I don't approve of me, then as soon as I go out that door, I'm going to need approval from whoever's on the other side.
Exactly, yeah.
And I'm going to need to become whatever they want me to become. Another version of not me. Right? So I think one of the greatest gifts is for us to know us. The unbecoming of the not me, and to really fully embrace the me that I am, that we all are. And it's scary, but it's so relieving. It's like so liberating when you can just take those layers of not me off and then just be.
Ladies and gentlemen, Sean Smith signing off. Until next time.
In the chair.